What is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. Yes, it is me, Skippy Midnight. First, I want to say thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel recently. It's been fantastic getting like 4 new subscribers. I know it doesn't sound like a lot. It's not a lot, but it feels like a lot, so thank you. And if you guys could, if this is your first time here, please do subscribe and please smash that like button. Let's go for 3 likes, all right? I'm being practical here, okay? With the release of Assassin's Creed Valhalla only 2 days away, it felt more than appropriate to rank them before Valhalla's release and then again after I've played the game in its entirety. Keep in mind that this is all my opinion, and if you disagree, you can leave your opinion down in the comments below. With that being said, let's get right into the video. In the number 15 spot, we have Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the game that transformed the series into a full RPG. I mean, it wasn't a good RPG, it wasn't a good game. The gameplay is choppy, the combat looks terrible, plays horrendous. You slice a guy 300,000 times before he finally dies. Enemies are damage sponges. The sailing feels kind of forced. The dead, not lived in open world. Each environment looks the same. Everything is copied and pasted because of how large they tried to make the open world. Nothing feels different. Everything kind of blends together. The characters are forgettable other than maybe Socrates and Alcibiades, if that's even his name. I don't even remember. Barnabas is okay. Cassandra is the far better voice actress. There's so many issues with this game on an Assassin's Creed level. Gameplay wise, if you're a brainlet and you just want to have a good time and just play a game, then hey man, good, maybe this one's for you. Not for me. If you like this game and you're an Assassin's Creed fan, then I don't know. I think it's a piece of shit. That's my opinion. You don't even play as a fucking assassin. There's no point to it. There's no point to it. It barely even furthers the plot of the modern day. I just don't care about this game. It is the lowest on my list. In the number 14 slot, we have Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Now, this game's open world is breathtaking and beautiful and feels lived in. However, its characters and main story are very, very forgettable. I don't have a reason to replay this game. It feels very basic, very average, and just overall forgettable. There's no other word for it. When you look at other games that have come before, like Black Flag and things like that, there's a certain expectation that is set out for an Assassin's Creed game, with a story that revolves around the psychology around the two orders, the two creeds, the two cults, the two groups, whatever you want to call them. It's supposed to be interesting, and Syndicate was anything but that. It was your basic villain who does nothing except get angry and kill people that are nice. And on top of that, the historical figures that they actually wanted to use, there are people in real life today that are still related to them, so they couldn't use them. So the historical accuracy, just the bar was dropped completely. So hard to get behind. It feels more like a parody of an Assassin's Creed game. I know it's been said before by bigger YouTubers, and I don't mean to copy them or plagiarize what they've said, but that's exactly what it feels like, and there's no better way to put it. So this may come as a shock, but in the number 13 spot, we have the Assassin's Creed Chronicles Russia. No, I don't think that making a side-scrolling game for Assassin's Creed was a good idea by any means. I much rather would have seen these as an open-world action-adventure game set in these dense urban areas that could have been really, truly great if Ubisoft actually followed through and gave the fans a little something that they wanted. But I was very captivated with the story of the Assassin's Creed Chronicles game. It's just not in particular Russia. I felt like Russia was lacking something, and the gunplay just wasn't for me. That is the most modern Assassin's Creed game that we have, and it just felt like a little too much for me. I didn't really enjoy it. I don't know. I mean, stealth was a factor, but you were using a gun a lot of the time. It just didn't feel right. Kind of like Syndicate, set a little too close to modern times. I liked Chronicles Russia, but it's a side-scroll game for one, so it wasn't, great, but it was more captivating than the previous two. In the number 12 slot, we have Assassin's Creed Liberation. Now, I have played this game to its entirety, and let me tell you, it's pretty fucking terrible. I don't mind Liberation, really. It's just kind of okay. It's there. And it's the first time that we get to see part of South America, if you can call it that, with like the Mayan temples and shit. It's more Mexico. I'm really interested in that Mayan or Aztec civilization. I feel like, especially with the new RPG elements that Ubisoft is introducing, a game set in that era during that time period involving the Assassins and Templars would be very, very interesting. I feel like it was a missed opportunity for them not to do something like that and for it only to appear in Liberation. and I guess part of Black Flag, but Liberation just feels kind of boring and dull, and the story is shit, and the open world is ugly, and the soundtrack is abhorrent. It's so bad. And New Orleans as a focal point just doesn't really pack the punch. Southern United States, just not for me. And don't even get me started on the mission structure based around the 3 different personas. It's so stupid. It's just dumb. However, I do really enjoy the economy system in that game. It's very well crafted, the whole trading routes and everything, and it makes sense for your character to be doing that. But yes, I very much like the economy system. I just do not like the rest of the game. Number 11 on our list is Assassin's Creed Chronicles India. Although this is one of the platformers or side-scroll games or whatever you want to call it, and that is a bit of a disappointment because India is a great country that Ubisoft should definitely explore in an open world game in the future, the story in this game and the characters really drive it home. While I don't really like the gameplay because it's not a traditional Assassin's Creed game, I really do like the story and I like the characters and I love the setting and the art that Ubisoft portrayed in this game. I thought that it was very fun. I thought the pacing was good. One thing that I really like about this game is the tie-in to Syndicate, with Arbaz Mir, the main character of this game, being the father of Henry Green. Other than that, there's not really much else to say. I mean, the Koh-i-Noor is an interesting piece of Eden, and I liked how they portrayed it in this story, and I liked the villains as well. The cast of characters was really good. But yeah, it should definitely be transported or converted into an open world at some point in the future.
For the most part, I really liked Assassin's Creed Rogue. Its gameplay was very similar to Black Flag, which had perfected that pirate fantasy, and although it didn't necessarily fit within Rogue's story, it just felt right to play, and familiar since Black Flag had come out the year prior. A lot of issues with Rogue are its story and the development of Shay as a character. He doesn't really undergo any development. Nothing really changes about him other than his allegiance. I think they could have fleshed out his character and a lot of other characters a bit more, and I think that the story could have been a little bit longer. Rogue was 10 minutes long, and I think it's kind of a shame to see such potential for a game that people were really excited for wasted, because it's the first time you got to play as a Templar, other than Haytham, but that doesn't really count. It's just wasted potential, and that's what Ubisoft is known for. Wasted potential, plots that could have been good, but just weren't, and Rogue is one of them. It's just so mediocre, and that's why it's towards the middle of the list. Assassin's Creed Chronicles China. There's a lot to say about this game. It's a great Assassin's Creed game for what it is, a side-scroller, but again, there's just such wasted potential. The connection between Xiao Yun and Ezio could have made for a great sequel to Ezio's story. However, they just decided to put it in some side game that almost no one played, and I'm 100% positive of that. The only ones that played it are the people doing YouTube tutorials and myself, because I'm a Ubisoft simp. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm proud of it. I'm a Ubisoft simp. I buy the Collector's Edition every single time that an Assassin's Creed Collector's Edition comes out. That's just who I am. That's just what I do. I feel the same way that I do about the other Chronicles games. It was good, it could have been better, and what holds it back is the side-scrolling. That's it. It has great story, and it would have great connection to the rest of the universe, and because it's held back by the side-scrolling, it's number 9 on this list. It's just not very good because of that reason, the gameplay. I remember first playing Assassin's Creed 3 in 2012 for hours on end, wishing I could parkour around like Connor and just embody the assassin athleticism. I don't know the right word to look for here. Anyways, Assassin's Creed 3 holds a special place in my heart, but after playing the remaster that came with Odyssey Season Pass, I was disappointed in remembering it the wrong way. It's not the same game that I thought that it was when I was so young and so naive, thinking that it was a masterfully told story. Assassin's Creed 3 is nothing but mediocre. I mean, there's nothing really special about it. I do have to say that I did like a lot of the side characters that you meet in the homestead, such as Achilles and a few others. The homestead system itself was very well crafted, at least in my opinion, but the story kind of fell flat towards the end. Connor never really changed. He didn't really learn anything, and that one speech that was in the game's code but never was released should have definitely been included in the remaster. I don't know why they didn't put it in there to show that Connor had grown at least a little bit. I don't know. It's just mediocre. It's a mediocre game. It's not bad. It's not fantastic. It's just mediocre. It's okay, and that's why it's smack dab in the middle of the list. In the number 7 spot, we have Assassin's Creed Origins, the first transition to a light RPG action open world game. I really like Origins personally.
I know that some of the pacing is off in specific places. I know that the main villain is the most forgettable villain that you'll ever think about in your entire life. He's so nothing, and you see him like twice before you actually get to fight him, and it's just another revenge story, which is really, really boring. We've seen so many revenge stories, and I'm kind of getting sick of them. Anyways, Assassin's Creed Origins is in the number 7 position, and it is above all these other games because of its gameplay and the first half of its story at least. Origins starts really strong, and the performance of Abubakar Salim is very, very, very good. He is a perfect Bayek. I love Bayek as a character, and it is specifically because his voice actor portrays that one guy, just that one guy that everybody knows and likes. He portrays him so well. It's so beautiful, the voice acting, the talent that was given to Ubisoft and thrown away towards the second half of the story is just incredible. Origins open world is really, really nice. I love the dynamic weather systems such as the sandstorms, rainstorms, stuff like that. While rainstorms are rare because it is Egypt, they do still happen. I have seen it happen. I don't have video of it, but it has happened. The combat feels good, and although it is a hitbox system, you still feel like an assassin. It still feels grounded, and it doesn't feel like Odysseys where you swipe at a guy and chop a guy up 300,000 times, and you could kill him possibly 4 times over in real life if you did the same thing. Whereas in Origins, you're just kind of slashing and cutting until you get the kill animation, and then that's it. But the gameplay isn't without its faults. It's very grindy, and I really dislike the skill tree system. I think they should just remove it completely. If your character doesn't have the skills that you're going into at the start of the game, then just don't include them unless they're a natural progression in the main narrative. That's not how the fundamentals of Assassin's Creed works. You can't just assign someone an ability because we're in an animus. It's based on memories. Your ancestor just doesn't know things like that. It's stupid. Get rid of it. But yes, Egypt is beautiful and versatile and breathtaking, and the soundtrack mirrors that perfectly. Just because Assassin's Creed Unity is one of my favorite games doesn't mean that it isn't without its issues. Assassin's Creed Unity on day one was a buggy, glitchy mess, and that hinders the experience for a lot of people wanting to get back into it, and I can understand that. Another major issue that Unity faced was its story. It wasn't the epic assassin tale that we all thought it was going to be. Instead, the plot revolved around Arno and his love for Elise, dragging it down to a crawl and making the story almost unbearable to get through if you're not a fan of the franchise. There were some interesting points throughout the story that I personally really enjoyed, but not everyone shares that opinion. Not everyone loves Unity for what it is. However, the gameplay is something that a lot of people can admire, and the open world is so beautiful. The visuals in this game slap. This is the most beautiful Assassin's Creed game I have played, and I probably will ever play, because I don't think they're ever going to try to push the graphics as hard as they did with this game ever again. Another issue that Unity faces is the modern day story. In all honesty, the game probably would have been better if they just cut the modern day from it completely, and I'm not even a fan of that. I'm someone who enjoys the modern day, but in Unity it just takes you out of the experience of the game for next to no reason, and it's sad to say that I would have much rather seen the game without it. The multiplayer in this game was a nice addition, and I hope that they return to it eventually, because I had a lot of fun with it while it was still popular and when people still played it. But now that it's kind of died out and there's not a lot of people online playing this game anymore, there's not a whole lot that I can do. But let's not forget that exploration in this game is so much fun, and running around Paris as an assassin in a game that actually makes you feel like one is truly an experience I don't think I'll ever forget. To this date, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games. From the beautiful storytelling that Darby McDevitt portrayed with an even more beautiful and colorful cast of characters, to the breathtaking and groundbreaking open world that pushed the limits of what an Assassin's Creed game could be, this game truly had it all. One of my favorite things about this game is the philosophy of the Templars and the Assassins, and how heavily it impacts Edward's character and the rest of the story. On top of that, the historical setting, while not perfect for an Assassin's Creed game, was perfect for Edward's story and added a lot of emotional connection to the character and through him, the player. This game is not without things I dislike though, and my only gripes that I have with it are the easy combat that takes little to no skill, the next to non-existent modern day that I just don't really care about, and the mission structure which can sometimes feel repetitive and tedious. All in all, it's still a fun game to just come back to and fuck around in, even if you have 100%ed everything. The world feels alive regardless, and it's a game that I can always count on to have a good time in.
Look, before you get mad at me for putting Brotherhood at 4, hear me out, okay? Okay? Are you listening? You're not typing a really angry comment? Okay, good. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is possibly the peak of Assassin's Creed. It is the first Assassin's Creed game that I ever played and understood and could really get behind. I enjoyed every single part of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but when I replayed it just a week or two ago, there was something that was off. Around sequence 3 or 4, maybe both, the pacing was just weird and I didn't really feel like it had a point. Maybe that's just me, maybe I'm the only one who saw it this way, but sequence 3 and 4 just kind of broke up the pace for me. Sequence 1 and 2 was big and explosive and got you right into the action, and picked up right where 2 had left off. But sequence 3 and 4 just kind of felt dead, and it wasn't really until sequence 5 where I kind of got back into the swing of things. Brotherhood is by no means a bad Assassin's Creed game. It is one of the most perfect Assassin's Creed games I've ever played, but compared to the games that I have above it in this list, it's just not as good. The storytelling is fantastic, the world is fantastic, the characters are immaculate, but because of that one pace break from sequences 3 to 4, it fell flat for me, and that's the only reason why it's number 4 on this list. The modern day is beautiful, and I couldn't have imagined a more perfect modern day story in any other Assassin's Creed game. It's the perfect sequel of a sequel, and it's always going to be that way, but it isn't going to be the best. This is it, boys. Top 3. And in the number 3 position we have Assassin's Creed Revelations, the perfect conclusion to Ezio, Altair, and Desmond's story. Many people dislike this game because it's not a traditional Assassin's Creed game. It's not the same, oh, there's a bunch of Templars, go around, kill them. No. This game is more nuanced. It's different. This isn't a revenge story. It isn't the beginning to a new era of Assassin's Creed with another major Templar playing a part in a diabolical scheme. No. This game is about the connection between Ezio and Altair. And that's why this game is so special. Because it's the summation of all that's come before. This is a time when Assassin's Creed respected its lore and wanted to create characters that were impactful on one another, not just characters that showed up once and then were thrown away to the side. And with Valhalla coming out, it sounds like Darby McDevitt is doing the exact same thing, trying to connect an invisible thread between every single character that we've seen so far, making all the games feel like they have a point. While I'm not the biggest fan of the open world, I appreciate the detail that was put into it and respect it for what it is. While I'm not the biggest fan of some of the combat, the slow motion in particular, I see what they were trying to do and give them credit for doing something different. And even though tower defense is the stupidest addition to this game, it makes sense story-wise to see Ezio commanding a small army of assassins against a Templar raid and is immersive regardless. I also enjoyed playing as Ezio in his old age, making the hook blade work and make sense for his character, along with new animations being used in combat that appear as if they take less effort for Ezio to get the kill. It all just fits. And that's what I looked for. Being able to play and experience parts of Altair's life that we didn't see beforehand was special too, and it's something that I wish other AC games had the courage to do, which is connect to each other in a way that makes sense and doesn't feel forced. The modern day isn't great, but what we were given was nonetheless written beautifully and cryptically in the way that Darby McDevitt has perfected. This game had a lot of expectation to live up to upon release, and while it didn't deliver to some, it definitely did to me. It all just fits, and that's why I love this game so much. Now, my second choice on this list may come as a shock to you, but I felt it only fair because this game is so old to include the Altair Chronicles and Assassin's Creed Bloodlines, the side games, when determining what rank to give it. Assassin's Creed is just that. Assassin's Creed. It embodies the franchise in its purest form, when Templars were Templars and Assassins were Assassins. Sure, the mission structure is repetitive, and the narrative isn't as fast-paced as the other games in the franchise, but Altair's story from an arrogant killer who took his own brotherhood for granted to someone who began to see what his hubris had done to not only himself, but the other members of his creed, is one to remember. And although I've never played the side games, I've watched playthroughs on YouTube, and without a doubt, Altair's story is one of the best in the franchise to date. The cryptic writing throughout the entirety of all the Altair games, along with the constant wanting to know more about the modern day, make the player stop and question. They make the player stop and think about what's really going on in the story, whether it be the real history of the game's setting or the philosophical elements of the two factions striving for the same goal with different means of achieving it. Assassin's Creed set the stage for a franchise that would both eventually expand on what it began and would hopefully stay true to its roots. I really love Assassin's Creed.
And though it's 13 years old, I believe anyone interested in the franchise should play it to get a better understanding not only about the story, but about why myself and so many others care about this franchise so much, and why it remains as one of my favorite game franchises of all time. And I'm sure that this one was obvious for a lot of you, but in the number 1 slot of my Assassin's Creed ranking is Assassin's Creed 2. This game is the perfect sequel to Assassin's Creed 1. A more detailed and elaborate open world, new systems like economy and notoriety, new types of assassinations and social stealth, a more detailed plot in both the modern and historical settings, various new options for weapons and skills like the hidden gun and the climb leap. I mean, the list just goes on. The only issue I have with this game is sequences 12 and 13, but even then, those sequences are DLC and aren't in the main game, which is what I'm ranking. Assassin's Creed 2 is a truly fantastic game, providing me and many others with a memorable gaming experience that has withstood the test of time. Ezio still and might always be the poster boy of the franchise, and when someone says the words Assassin's Creed, immediately my mind is brought to Ezio and his story of a boy being forced into becoming a man by the wrongful acts of some secret order that lurks behind the politics and faiths at the forefront of society. This game never gets old, and it set a standard that the future games in the franchise would only dream of achieving, but let's see what Valhalla has in store for us.